So the first presentation is about designing and evaluating an innovative approach to teaching artificial intelligence and creativity. Very timely, Matthew, I must say. It's a Gold-funded study, and we have with us Matthew Yee-King from Goldsmiths.
Timely indeed. Of course, we did it first, you know. We always no. I will try and convince you of that argument shortly. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for inviting me to speak at RIDE. It's great to be here. I'm sorry I missed out on the lunch. I'm judging by the fact that we started a bit late that it was a good lunch. So I'm sorry I missed out on that. But yeah, unfortunately, we've got some. As you may or may not know, we run the distance learning programs with Goldsmiths, University of London, and we're doing some filming this afternoon. So I had to be in here. I'm actually in one of our studios today. So yes, let's crack on with it then. So what I don't know actually is how long I'm supposed to speak for. I've got about 20 minutes worth. Hopefully that's about right. But just tell me to stop if there's too much. Right. So the title of the talk today is Designing and Evaluating an Innovative Approach to Teaching Artificial Intelligence and Creativity. Okay, right. So this is me. So I'm Matthew Yee-King, and I work at Goldsmiths, and right now I'm the program director for the computer science BSc online. And so I have been doing this, I think we launched in 2019, and we were the first undergraduate degree on the Coursera platform. And we currently have, I think, about 5,000 students. It seems to have sort of the steady state number, because we've actually had our first graduates now as well. But our steady state number is around 5,000 or so, 4,000 to 5,000, difficult to tell, you know, economically active or whatever. Anyway, they're in 120 countries. This is probably more interesting. And so it's really a fantastic kind of cohort of people all over the world. And yeah, so that's my kind of main job. But I also have worked as a researcher with education technology, working on European funded research projects. So and also even I used to work as a research engineer years ago at Bristol University, where we were developing additions to Moodle back then to allow it to enable video. So this was in early 2000s, back when video was kind of fresh. And so yeah, that's something I worked on a while back. But also I'm very interested in research in creative applications of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and my PhD in fact was all about applying artificial intelligence techniques to creative domains, which I've been doing for like 25 years or so now. Okay, so what are my aims today? So what I want to do today is talk about basically the challenge of teaching state-of-the-art artificial intelligence. So most of you have probably used a state-of-the-art artificial intelligence as of December 2022. Everyone and their dog has had a crack on ChatGPT, and yes, everybody keeps telling me how amazing ChatGPT is. I'm like, yeah, I've kind of heard of it already, you know, and you'll see why in a minute. Yeah, the number two is to explain sort of our pedagogical and technological approach in the first version of this course. So the funding we received from Code is it's sort of really to push us into version 2 of the course. So we developed version 1 within the context of, let me jump there a bit. Yeah, no, I'm not going to jump. I'm going to go properly. Yeah, so we developed version 1 within the context of the online degree. So it's actually part of one of our courses, but we really wanted to, because we thought it was kind of an interesting topic in particular, we applied for some funding to try and improve the content and evaluate our pedagogical approach. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about a bit today, about how we went about doing it, and also how we're going about evaluating it in order to create version 2. So yeah, summary, too many lists. Right, let's go on. So first of all, I want to maybe answer the question, or at least address the question, what is AI creativity? So we are at Goldsmiths. I've been working with Mark Inferno and other people on using AI systems within creative context for a while. Now, I'm saying that carefully because we don't just say, oh yeah, AIs are creative. We kind of, personally, I don't really care whether they are or not. I mean, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, is my favorite quote for this. So let's move on and do something interesting with it, right? So what we say then is AI creativity. It's kind of systems where you've got a creativity is happening somewhere. It might be the person, might be the AI. Doesn't really matter. Well, maybe it does for copyright reasons. I don't know. But you've got this kind of compound of an AI and creativity going on. So it's AI being used in creative contexts. Now, Mark D'Inverno is much more strident about this, and he will tell you that it's meaningless to say that an AI can be creative because an AI has no reason to be creative. You know, why would it be interested in making a piece of artwork? It's just that they may have made a really elaborate algorithm to generate AI art, but the fact is the algorithm itself doesn't really care whether it makes art or not, whereas, you know, typically a human artist actually has a meaning to their work. You know, they kind of have to do it, they're driven to do it. So that's one of the aspects of it, but that's a philosophical discussion I'm going to slightly avoid, but suffice to say, these links are from a little while ago, but yeah. So you've got, and it's not DeepMind, sorry, it's OpenAI that made GPT-3, writes newspaper articles, and OpenAI's Jukebox, which is one of the previous systems they built before ChatGPT and all that, was able to basically write music in complete pieces of music. So yeah, it's kind of exciting times. And yeah, I will say, so ChatGPT, let's talk about that. So that is currently on GPT version 4 as of, I think, March. Earlier this month, they released GPT-4. And when I originally developed this course, GPT-3 was the state of the art and ChatGPT didn't exist. So we launched this course originally in October 21, and this particular part of the course, the AI creativity stuff, was launched in January 22. So since we launched the course, they moved on to GPT 3.5, which is the one that's in the original ChatGPT, and which has basically is a big language model with a bunch of constraints slapped on top of it to stop it from being too racist or offensive or wrong. So that's what ChatGPT is. It's basically just this GPT-3 with some enhancements. Now the newest version is an order of, you know, possibly a couple of orders of magnitude bigger than the old version. So it's just that much bigger a model. And what that means is it has a more elaborate understanding of the flow of what it's creating, and has a longer memory actually. But anyway, so one of the problems with teaching this stuff is that it's difficult to describe and understand these systems. Okay, so GPT-3 has 175 billion parameters. It's a huge basically function approximation machine, but you know what's the function that it's approximating, and how does anyone dig into that and understand it? So that's one of the big challenges. And also the next one is that for a student, for example, to meaningfully use this, not just interacting with it via a chat prompt, but actually somehow more deeply engaging with the model, you know, you need some pretty heavy duty hardware to run this stuff, certainly the state of the art models. And so, yeah, and I read somewhere that GPT-3 was running on $250 million of hardware. That's the hardware they used to train it on. So, yeah, not accessible to most people. Certainly, I don't have that sitting in the cupboard. And so then also the systems are hard to deploy and run. So the current generation of things are accessible via the web. You know, you just go in and you type text, but you don't have the model in your hand. And if anyone wants to find out the kind of more exciting, maybe crazy stuff that's going on with these language models at the moment, it was interesting when the Facebook Llama model, if you look up the Facebook Llama model online, you can find out about that. But basically they accidentally released the weights for that model, which is when you train it, the weights are the things that you're spending all the money on. Is basically figuring out how the model how the signal flows through the model. And those are the things that cost millions of pounds to train. And they accidentally released all of their weights on the internet through a BitTorrent, and now anyone can get hold of certainly a reasonably large Llama model. I think it's up to like 14 billion parameters. So it's a tenth the size of GPT-3, but still it's a pretty impressive model. It doesn't have all of the censorship that GPT-4 has on it, although that's all there for good reason actually, because obviously it's trained on the internet, which is pretty crazy in places. So anyway, that's to cut a long story short, these systems, even though some of the weights are available through dubious channels, they are hard to deploy and run on a regular computer. Like you try running GPT-4 on your machine, well, you can't get the weights, so you can't even get the model. And you're going to be, when you interact with it, it's not running on your machine, it's running on some massive data center somewhere, probably somewhere cold. Okay, so moving on. So the context for this course, which I alluded to earlier, is that the first version of the course is that it's 5 weeks within a 20-week BSc Computer Science Level 6 AI course. So we were creating a course called Artificial Intelligence. It's one of our sort of final year courses, 15 credits, and it's on the Track C model for those of us who know about that. And yeah, so it's kind of 5 weeks of content. So that typically means it's around 25 to 35 hours of study time within that course. Okay, so it's one block within a course. And so the course had a general approach, which was to do case studies. So each of those blocks is a case study. And so one of the case studies is automated design of life forms, okay, which I thought was kind of fun, based on Carl Sims' Creatures work. And then and also some of the more up-to-date sort of evolutionary computation stuff. And then one of the other ones was the automated scientific discovery. So we showed people how it was possible to use AI to carry out scientific research independently on its own, autonomously. And we also did another case study on AIs that can play video games. And again, all of these, we made the software available to the students so they could use it, run it on their own machines. Okay, so the general structure of that 5 weeks of content is we start off with an intro to AI creativity. So we kind of explain what it is and give them some basic coding activities to build some things. And then we go into this kind of what we call the pop song case study, okay? And so the concept is that they're going to write a pop song with AI. And so the first bit they do is they generate the lyrics, and then they generate the music, and then they render a synthesized singing voice. Okay, so a kind of AI sings the song as well. And then finally they put it all together, and now they've done that, we tell them all about state of the art, what's the latest on this stuff, which is a bit of content that needs to change all the time, as you can imagine. So yeah, that's a really big, if anyone's interested, that's a more detailed slide with all the learning objectives and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we can have a quick look at some of that and kind of zoom in on it. So, yeah, so week 1 introduction. So describe the plan and key steps for the AI, the case study. So a learning objective about the case study itself, implementing a simple generative system, using examples from the literature, explaining what things are. Yeah, so these all look like maybe level 6 type learning objectives if you're used to that kind of stuff, And so then it moves on to using pre-trained models and then different models. So the idea is that the overall system is kind of built out of multiple AI models. So they're learning about how, not just interacting with one model, but how you can have specialist AI models and you combine them into a whole, which is this thing that can do a task. So that's kind of one of the things we wanted them to learn about, is like kind of how to compose combinations of models to achieve a goal. Because it's not always one gigantic monolithic model. And in fact, you'll probably find that GPT-4, for example, is sort of has different models within there to do different things. Okay, right. So then within that course structure, we've got these kind of different elements. So we've got technical concepts for each thing. So it's key sort of, because it's an AI course for computer science students, we've got technical concepts for each part that they work on. So in the first one, it's about auto-regression, statistical models. I'm not going to explain these because we're not here to learn about AI so much, but self-attention, fine-tuning, auto-encoders. So we've got different technical machine learning related concepts. But you also have, you'll see a creative activity in the other column, which I'm kind of floating over the top of. Yeah, so you've got creative activities, different inputs, how to, so basically encouraging them to carry out creative work using the model and how to explore the capabilities of the model and do different things with it. Okay, so that's kind of the concept. The concept is each of these things has a technical concept or a couple of technical concepts, and then kind of creative activity where they explore with the model and find out what it can do. Okay, and then So let's just go through and see what this thing can do. So I can actually show you the thing. Yeah, so how much detail have I got on this? Yeah, so we deployed it inside something called Coursera Labs. So I should just explain what that is. And essentially the concept of Coursera Labs is that you can create, so this is a web browser. We're actually inside a web browser here, but you can see it's kind of a programming environment. So if anyone's into programming, this is so here's the Coursera kind of web page. And the idea is, as the student works through the content on the course, they'll hit one of these points, which is called a lab, and they hit that button and it opens up. And then inside the web browser, they get a programming environment, which has all of the models and all the bits and bobs ready for them, all installed. And this is then executed on the Coursera hardware. So, you know, it's displaying into your web browser, but this is effectively a little miniature computer, if you like, or a virtual machine, or to be really specific, a containerized, you know, Linux environment, basically running on the Coursera infrastructure and displaying out to your screen. So you've got your own personal sort of virtual machine running on the Coursera infrastructure. And we've set that virtual machine up with a whole bunch of toys, basically, for you to explore. And so that's kind of addressing that problem of the difficulty of installing these things. So I did all the horrible work of downloading all the right versions of all the Python libraries and getting it all to work reliably, and then boiled it all down to kind of what you can see here, which is, you know, the four steps involved. So we start off with the lyrics, with generating lyrics. Now you'll notice it's GPT-2, and it's a small version of GPT-2. And the reason is the Coursera Labs environment by default doesn't have $250 million of hardware for me to run a big version of it on there. So what I do have is a fairly micro, like the power of this machine is equivalent to, I don't know, something like a laptop from 10 years ago. So it's quite weedy, but, you know, but by making the models accessible, the point is that the student can see it's actually possible to run these things on your own system. So they can also download this stuff and run it on their own system pretty easily. Okay, so yeah, how does it work? Well, so you open it up and then you get a bunch of README that gives you some instructions, and then you get various scripts which you can run. So the lyrics were generated. I'll show you some examples. Here are some lyrics written by my small GPT-2 model, like really small, runs in 4 gigs of RAM, okay, versus hundreds of gigs for the big ones. And yeah, this is what it wrote. And what I did, so one of the technical concepts was this idea of fine tuning. So when you get a model that's just fresh out of the box, you know, a trained language model, it's not specialized. It can do anything really. So what people often do when they want it to do a particular thing is they do something called fine tuning. And that essentially involves showing it a whole load of specific data and getting it to learn how to work with that. So it kind of, it retunes it a bit. So it's like, I don't know, tuning a car engine so that it is more efficient or faster or whatever, you know. I fine-tuned it on a data set of Eurovision Song Contest lyrics. So in fact, the entire data set from 1950 or whatever to 2020, I think it was, I managed to find that. And I fine-tuned it on that. And, you know, I sort of jokingly would say that it's the equivalent of basically taking GPT-2 out to a bar and making it sing karaoke all night whilst doing shots. And that's what it comes up with at the end of that. It starts singing like a Eurovision Song Contest contestant. Okay, so yeah, so that's what it does. And the idea is with this thing, maybe I can show you a demo. So sorry to zoom in, but it's tiny otherwise. So hopefully you can see it. So I'll be in my terminal here. So if I go up and go into the GPT. Now, I don't know how much time I've got. Some of this stuff runs a bit slow, but I'll just run one example. So to run this, so what you do is you start it with a prompt, and you can see if we look at the code there. So I've actually given it a prompt already, which is research in online education makes me want to sing about ... Okay. Oops, it looks like there's an error in that script. Yeah, there we go. It makes me want to sing about ... And you can edit this code, you know, in the web browser. I can go in and edit it. And if I run that script like this, it takes a little while. Let's run the fine-tuned one. So what it will now do is it will use the language model to sort of continue on the theme to kind of riff off of that starting prompt, which, you know, okay, if I told you this in November 22, none of you would have had anything. Well, maybe some people would, but most people would have no familiarity with this concept of like giving a prompt to a machine, right? But now, oh dear, it's Eminem. Hope it's not rude. Sorry if it's rude. I don't have any control over that. Okay. Right, so research in online education makes me want to sing about, I'm sing, just don't you tell me why, I'm try. Something about Eminem. Okay, whatever. Right, so you can see it kind of basically works-ish. It's not as good as your ChatGPT, but then ChatGPT isn't running on a 4 gig virtual machine, you know. Put it that way, it's running on millions of tons of hardware. Right, okay, right. So what's next? So the next step is you've got your lyrics, so you can try out. So the idea is for them to experiment with prompt engineering, which when I did it back in 2021 was cool, but everyone's doing it now, so it's boring. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What they can do is they can also fine tune their own model with their own set of lyrics. So for example, I tried fine tuning it on a set of rap lyrics, but it was fairly it was a bit sweary after that, so I didn't release that model to the students. Whereas Eurovision's quite clean, so I was quite confident it wouldn't be too bad. Okay, so moving on. So the next step is that we used Music VAE to generate music. So this Music VAE is another type of neural network. So it's a different type of model. And this one is trained to be able to generate musical sequences. So what we call MIDI files. So so this is an example output from it. Let's see if we can hear it. Okay, that's not the full thing, but you get the idea. So it can, I think I've got a proper example here. Here we go, where is it? Yeah, there's one. So let's play it. I think you can probably hear it. Okay, so what it can do is it can generate sort of chunks of music like that. And depending what numbers you pass in, so this one you don't prompt engineer it, you don't tell it, you don't feed it English, you feed it 256 numbers in the range 0 to 1, and it will generate some music. And then if you adjust those numbers slightly, then it will generate slightly similar music but slightly different. And so you can explore this space of what the machine learning model knows. So that's more about kind of exploring latent spaces, which is the technical concept behind that. So that's an example of that. And then the final step is this really hardcore human voice singing model. So when I was developing this course, I was researching, I wanted to deploy some sort of singing voice model. And I found that it was a really hot area, that there were lots of papers coming out in the year that I was writing about it. And so it was quite difficult to get a really good system that would work easily on the infrastructure. But I got one and it works. So you probably want to hear it. Let me just play you an example of it. I've got one here. Where is it? Sorry. Yeah, this one.
Research in online education makes me want to sing about. I've been living the dream of a better life, but in my mind I'm narrow.
There you go. So that's the singing voice. It's a little bit kind of daisy, you know. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's, again, the point being that it's a model which the students can download and have on their own system or run on this very lightweight container system on Coursera, and then use it to sing. And the idea is that it's now singing the lyrics that you generated from GPT-2 along the melody line that you generated using the next model. So you kind of gradually build up the thing. It's all being generated through you know, these models. Okay, so that's it. Let me just play you a mixed version. So the final step is to mix it all together, and I think I've got one here. Yeah, here we go. If we play mixed.
Research in online education makes me want to sing about.
Oh no.
I've been living the dream of a better life, but in my mind I'm narrow.
Another one.
Research in online education makes me want to sing about.
Okay, so you know, it's a little bit silly and jokey, but that's kind of the idea, is that it's kind of fun and entertaining, and it will make up some funny lyrics and a fairly catchy song, and then, you know, and you can do it all inside that environment, and learn about multiple models and so on. Right. So did it work? How well do I think we addressed those problems? So problem one was that it's difficult to describe and understand the models. Remember that 175 billion parameters, difficult to understand. So one of the problems is this kind of cognitive load problem. So by making it easy to run the models and interact with them, but still have full access to the whole model, we use this kind of labs environment to reduce the cognitive load. And also, when things are difficult to describe and difficult to understand, what you need is motivation, right? Because it's not always easy to compress learning. You can't always make things easy to learn. But what you can do is you can, I'm sitting in. So core concepts of learning by doing. Okay, so we're coming from the Seymour Papert school, Piaget and all that, and we're looking at this learning by doing, and we think that if you can motivate people through these kind of fun examples and like, oh, why is it doing that? Well, I want to find out why it does that, and sort of encourage people to explore, then they will then engage more deeply with the difficult subjects of why it is doing that, or what is it? Well, oh, it's fine-tuned. What does that mean? But I don't want it to sing Eurovision songs. I want it to sing rap. How do I do it? So it's like, it's about motivating students to explore by giving them something interesting that they can engage with. And that's kind of partly what the combination of technical and creative concepts is. Okay, then the other thing is these systems are resource intensive to develop and train. And so you can see here that we gave them these pre-trained models. So it's already been trained, but you can do a little bit more training with a reasonably lightweight system and see how it changes. That's kind of how we did that. But mainly it was pre-trained models. So we gave them models that were already trained, but we kind of explained how that was done. And then finally, hard to do. 5 minutes. Just checking. Yeah. Okay. So I'm nearly wrapping up. So I'm going to jump to my evaluation. So I just wanted to talk about one aspect of the evaluation quickly that we've been working on. So I spent too long playing the things. So we were funded. One of the things we were funded to do was to carry out a workshop where we invited experts on various aspects of distance learning, AI, creative industries, all that stuff. And we got them to have a look at our course. We sort of taught them through the course. And then in order to evaluate that, we did a qualitative analysis using Braun and Clark's reflexive thematic analysis, which was done by Andrea Fiorucci, who's one of the names on that first slide there. And the idea, this is the process basically. So you familiarize yourself with the data, you generate your initial codes, you generate your themes, you review the themes. So it's kind of a bit like grounded theory, but not quite. It's more, it has a very distinct, rigorous kind of workflow, which he did very carefully. And the output is basically a list of themes, which are things that were discussed in the workshop. So we analyze the transcript of everything that was said in the workshop. So teaching AI is challenging. That's probably from my presentation where I basically said that at the beginning of the workshop. Moment-to-moment AI interaction is can promote creativity. Designing AI courses for a diverse audience through collaboration and sharing. Assessment and course evaluation through sharing and connection with students. Ethics and implications to cover when teaching AI. So these are the themes that kind of emerged from the discussion. And we're also doing quantitative analysis, but I'm not going to present any of that today. And analysis is ongoing. And so the output, so the way that we interpreted those themes into clear actions onto what to do next, is we want to have a strong creative brief in the course. So we want to come up with a really strong creative brief so the students know exactly how it all fits together, what they're trying to achieve, which is going to be around, can maybe a radio advert jingle or a podcast jingle type of thing. And then we want to make sure that assessment involves collaboration and sharing so that the students can see what other people are able to do and understand it better and more, engage more deeply, especially for a more diverse audience who might enjoy that more than your more technical audience. And then finally, content discussion, the ethical aspects, so we'll add ethics to that. Okay, and that's it. So that's what we're going to do. Version 2 is also going to be a MOOC, so a specialization on Coursera. So it'll be many more diverse people taking the course. So that's one of the things we're going to be doing in version 2, which we're working on for the sort of launch later this year. Okay, so these are my aims. Just to wrap up now, I wanted to describe the challenges of teaching state-of-the-art artificial intelligence, explain the pedagogical and technical approach in version 1 of the course, which was what I just showed you, and talk about the ongoing evaluation and version 2 of the course and what we're going to be doing there. And that's the end. Thanks very much. Sorry if I ran a bit over.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Fascinating. And thanks for the hands-on presentation and show us some of the stuff you're developing and the students are developing. Fascinating stuff. Any questions from the audience? Mary?
Yes, thank you very much, Matthew. Really interesting. I'm just wondering, I know it's in your next stage of research, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are about how you're going to assess students and what you're going to assess through collaboration and sharing.
Yeah, so that's going to be quite challenging. So some of the things we found is it's difficult to actually engage people in that kind of activity in these kind of MOOC contexts. They just want to kind of cane it through. They just want to burn through the whole course and get it done. So encouraging them to kind of bust out of that mode and kind of share things they've made is a bit of a challenge. So I think what we're looking at things like maybe integrating a way of people sharing content and people rating each other's songs. So having a kind of top, like a chart. So who's got the best, pop song or whatever. And so that's one aspect. So kind of making it, not really gamifying it, but kind of maybe making it a bit close to how it might work in the real world if you're writing, pop songs or something like that. Encouraging people to upload things onto YouTube and maybe get some feedback, stuff like that. So I think just getting the wider world into what they're doing is one approach. Obviously, the technical approach is we've got things like peer reviews that you kind of have to do to get through the course, where we can encourage sharing. But also, I think having more interesting type of things embedded in there as well, like I've just mentioned.
Thank you, Matthew. And the thing I want to clarify, so it's a MOOC, isn't it? You said it's a MOOC.
Yeah. So the current. Yeah, the version I've just described is it's currently part of the online computer science degree, so it's part of a credit-bearing module. But version 2, which is what we're working towards, that will be a MOOC. Yes.
It will be a MOOC. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering in relation to assessment and how the assessment would work. Yeah, I got it now. Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I really want to know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Matthew?
Matthew, can you hear? I will repeat the question, don't worry.
Okay, so as we continue to promote creativity using AI, what extent is this going to undermine, or if you like, impair natural creativity? To what extent?
Okay.
I would want to get his reaction.
Okay. I don't know if that's a good question. The question was, to what extent teaching AI creativity or teaching creativity via AI can impair natural creativity? Did I get it right?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Well, it's a question a lot of people are asking at the moment, isn't it? What is the next phase of creating for humans when you've got AIs available that can seemingly create things of equivalent quality, in some areas anyway. So I think this is by the aim of this course is to allow people to at least have control, democratizing the models a bit. So at the moment, if you want to interact with one of these the image models are quite democratized. You can kind of download those models, you can run them yourself. The big language models are less democratized, I would say. So I think that so what we're doing here with the smaller models is making them accessible so students can at least dig into them and see what's going in there and have control over them themselves. So yeah, I think that's definitely an important part of the process, is unlocking the models so that people can interact directly with them, not having to do so necessarily via a kind of protective layer. But yeah, I mean, there's also risks associated with that. So yeah, but it can, for me personally, I've been using AI systems in my creative practice. I'm a musician, and I've done all kinds of things like live radio shows, live performances and things like that on BBC and everything like that. So I've done a lot of performances with AI systems. And for me, it's always about having a system which can enhance what I'm able to do, or to pull me into a new area so that I can find out new things about what I like to do, rather than the focus being, can the AI on its own be creative? I don't think that's as interesting. It's more interesting to see, what can the AI do for you? Can it enhance your own experience? There's a few thoughts anyway.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. And I think we have a national anthem for right. what was it, online education makes, research in online education makes my heart beat wildly or something along the line. Thank you.
Something like that.
Thank you.